Hey, welcome to Talking Hawks, the greatest, the largest, the most prestigious Hawthorn fan-driven channel on the planet, bringing people from around the globe to discuss all things Hawthorn. And today we've got an incredibly special guest with us, the Honourable Jeffrey Kennett. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. That's very generous of you. Started so politely.
Well, we've been talking it up a lot, Jeff, having you on, and personally, it's one of the most exciting experiences for myself, and I know Matt feels similar. So it's wonderful to have you on the show, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Well, don't get overly excited. Let's just get through the show, shall we?
Well, Jeff was very kind, just sort of touching base about the show. I said, yeah, how do you feel about talking on different topics? And Jeff said, just don't hold back, fans. So here we are. We've got the president, third term. Is it, Jeff?
My what?
Is it the third term with the Hawks now?
Depends how you count. It's probably the fourth if you do it by 3-year terms. So I did a 6-year term initially, then had a break and was called back into service. So I'm now on to the second half of the second term. So I've started my fourth and last term.
Oh,
very good.
Excellent. Well, we saw even just at the MCG, I think it was the Brownless brothers giving you a little bit of slack from, well, it looked like it was friendly banter, but yeah, that was entertaining the other week against the Cats. What happened there?
Would have been more entertaining had we won. But it's true, I was a little nervous, but I thought the boys performed very well. We could have got over the line, but we didn't. But this year is a year in which we're introducing new players into the team. And I am predicting that we probably will be competing for silver again in 2023. I think to overly promise too early is a mistake. So as long as our members understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, then there's no hassle. Mind you, it's 2015 since we've won a flag, and some of our members are getting fairly irritable, I can tell you.
We're a bit spoiled, aren't we, Jeff?
Yes.
So, Jeff, tell me what gives you the confidence that 2023 will start to see silverware again?
Well, we'll compete for silverware in 23. I'm having a look at both the people we've brought into the club, particularly going back to the draft at the end of last year. We picked up 6 young men. Some of them are going to be outstanding footballers. I'm not going to name them here, giving them a kiss of death, but you know who I'm referring to.
Yeah.
And some of them have been included in the team. They will need a bit of time to adjust to playing senior football, playing with each other, understanding the tactics that the coach wishes them to deliver. So bearing in mind, that they're young in years, bodies are still growing, their football experience might have been good before they come into AFL football, but it's a big jump up and it takes a while for people to settle into a team. So Richmond today is a team of people that have been playing together for years. They've got hardened bodies. They know what they're doing. We've got to get back to that position, which we're in sort of from 2008 to 2015.
The nice thing there is that Clarko and Sammy both, as coach and player and almost on-field coaching, that dynamic and almost unspoken knowledge of each other, that's in the fabric, that's in the DNA, which for me is very exciting as a fan, to know that we've got some young'uns coming through that can draw from that. So it sets us up well, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right. And this year we've got Sam coaching Box Hill, which is our VFL team. And that gives him added experience in managing people, putting together a coaching body, etc. So it's all designed to continually train Sam up to a position that he becomes a senior coach. We hope that will be with us at some stage. When it is, I don't know. But one of our jobs at Hawthorn is to train people to the highest level of their profession. And although in years gone by we've lost a lot of people to other clubs, coaches, administrators, etc., we wear that as a badge of honour. People look to Hawthorn for good quality people. And the last one to go, of course, is Tim Silvers, who is our CFO, and he's just been appointed as the CEO of the Adelaide Football Club. So that's a wonderful opportunity for Tim. He'd served with us, I think, for 14, 16 years.
Wow.
Very competent, very capable. And I was speaking to his president yesterday, and he says Tim is doing a remarkable job. So we do that with our coaches, we do it with our football people, we do it with our administrators. And you will find the league is littered with people who have had their fundamental training at Hawthorn, and that includes Dimmer at Richmond, of course.
So is this part of our plan to take over the AFL, Jeff?
Well, if only. If only. I think there's a lot of presidents who'd like to take over the AFL. No, we just want to get our own house in as best condition we can, and to be financially independent of the AFL. That gives us the greatest flexibility possible.
So, Jeff, you mentioned that Sam is earmarked to be the future coach. Do you have any ideas as to how far away that would be, or where Clarko sits regarding his future with Hawthorn?
No, there's no time frame. Clarko's got a contract till the end of next year. We will review his contract as he will review what he wants to do at the end of this year. That will then decide what other opportunities open up. But it may be, and I hope it's not the case, but it might be that there'd be a number of other clubs that'd be very interested in poaching Sam. I mean, Sam has been a remarkable individual. He played at Box Hill for a number of years before he got selected for the Hawthorn senior team. He has earned his position as a serious player through persistence. So he wasn't a natural athlete, but by goodness, he trained harder than anyone else and he earned his spot. And then, of course, he became the captain of the team, captain of our 2008 Premiership team, went to West Coast to do training there as a coach, back with us. So he's had the most extraordinary training for what lies ahead. So while we would like to think he would be a coach for Hawthorn, I can assure you that there'll be many other clubs who will be looking at him very seriously at the end of this year.
So there's two parts to that, Jeff, which is really interesting. Do you think, look, there's best of intentions, you're grooming Sam and continuing to develop him, but from a board perspective, can you take us a little bit behind the scenes? How do you, if Clarkson's been part of the furniture now for 17 years, how do you help energize him? Because there's been times I've looked at him on camera and whatnot, and Clarko's looking like he's a bit tired. And I know he's an energetic man by nature, but it looks like at times he's carrying the weight of the world. How do you support him and get the best out of him? Because if he's a chance to go on and have a third tilt with rejuvenating a list, obviously you've got a part to play.
He is a remarkable individual, Clarko. Let me put it that way. I always say that people should stay in leadership positions between sort of 6 and 9 years and then move on. So Clarko's been there 16, 17 years, which is well outside the boundary that I would normally set. That said, he's probably the most experienced coach in the league. So up until COVID, at the end of every year, Clarko would travel overseas. He'd go to other sporting clubs and look at their facilities. He'd go and look at training, etc. So he revitalised himself through exposing himself to other codes of football and sport, to personalities and to facilities. And he always came back excited about the next year. Without COVID, the last 12 months and therefore no travel, he's actually been developing a property down on the Mornington Peninsula, and that is giving him a break away from football, and he's had a good break over Christmas. He is very much focused on winning another piece of silverware for Hawthorn. I can't tell you how focused he is. So when you say he looks tired, I guess any of us can look tired from time to time, but I was talking to Clarko on Saturday. He's very, very relaxed. He said to me when we had reduced the salary cap on the football department, that is the soft cap, from 9.5 million to about 6.3. While that led to loss of personnel, etc. And this is something imposed on us by the AFL. Every club had to go through this. He actually said to me, "It's so nice, I'm back more directly coaching the players." So he was actually getting a buzz from spending more time with the players, both in terms of their football careers, but getting to know them better. So don't worry about how he might be looking from time to time. I tell you, he is terribly, terribly focused. So that's why.
Yeah, back off, Matt. I
want to know what does Jeff help energize him? That's all I want to know.
No, he's fine. What can we do as a board? We support him as best we can. We have board meetings regularly. We listen to what he's saying. We challenge him. We have a football subcommittee, which is headed up by Richie Vandenberg, one of our ex-captains and a member of the board. No, Clarko's in a good place at the moment. Let's hope he stays that way. And it goes back to what I was saying before. A lot of people say of their club or their business that, for instance, this year we're going to be highly successful. We're going to play for silver. We've not said that this year. We've actually said this is a year of consolidation where we're bringing in new players. We're training them up to work as a team, to put a bit of muscle on, to learn better skills. So while we've only won one game out of 5, the game against Essendon the first, the next 2 against Collingwood and Geelong were highly competitive and very good games. And I was very, very pleased. The week after that was a bit of a letdown. And last week, we played well for 3 quarters and then Melbourne ran all over us. But the guys kept playing. They never gave up.
Yes.
And all I ever want to see of our guys is that, in my opinion, they give their best and they can walk off the ground with their head held high. So it's not always, in any given weekend or a season, a matter of games won. It's actually what you're trying to build. And we are trying to build a team that will then be competing for the silverware for the next decade when that time comes, and I'm suggesting it'll be from 2023. In the same way that the recruiting in 2004-5 got us Hodge and Ruffy and all of those players that stayed together up until 2015. So we know what we're doing. Whether we can deliver, time will tell.
No, I like that, Jeff. And look, I'm curious at what stage, like for watching us after, say, 2017 or 2018-19 and 20, that were really frustrating years, right? And I felt like we should have actually gone to the draft then and started our rebuild, but it seemed like we kept trading off our high draft picks to top the team up and have more cracks. And it's like, at what stage did we realize that, hang on, we need to just stop this and go back to the draft and rebuild and start again, or consolidate, like you said? Yeah,
I suppose the evidence of that was last year where we went back to the draft. And we got those young players who are the ones. So last year we got Will Day. This year we've got 6 young guys. Will is injured now, as are some of our other senior draft picks. So it's a game of frustration from time to time. And I think Sydney went through the same process some years ago after they won some finals of trying to just import to be competitive. But there comes a time even then, as we've found, when you hit a brick wall. And you've got to be prepared to change a few every year in order to keep a fresh base. And I think you'll see us go back to the draft this year at year's end. And look, don't get me to sound overly confident, but I'm very pleased with what the coaching football department are doing now in giving us that bait. Which is why I say 2023, I hope, will be the start of a very, very competitive period for Hawthorn.
Here's a quick question from Cody, Jeff. Does Sam Mitchell have any input on draft prospects, or will he? Because he's obviously managing the younger guys right now, and we're heading down to watch Box Hill this week. We know that he keeps the first, second, third year players pretty close and works in with them. So he's obviously concentrating on that bond and developing that group.
Yes, He does, and he works very closely with the football department and with the coach. As I say, he is the development coach at Hawthorn, so he coaches Box Hill, but he also has a very major role at the football club at Hawthorn and working with Rob McCartney, who's head of the football department, and the coach. No one does anything on their own at Hawthorn. We are a team, and it's only through teamwork that you deliver good results. But brilliant. It's a very interesting process we've got in place at the moment in terms of training personnel, and I'm very excited by it.
Good. We love to hear that, Jeff. Now, Jeff, I've got a question that I've been really curious about. And I hope you don't mind me go down memory lane a little bit, but I remember it was somewhere around 2004. You were announced as president of the Hawthorn Football Club. And I was just like, where did this come from? Like, were you always in the background with Hawthorn? Were you on the board? And like, it's like you just came out of left field. And I remember Matt calling me and saying, Jeff Kennett's the president. And we're all like, holy crap, this is exciting. We remember what you did to Victoria and how you just turned the whole place around, and you did it again with Hawthorn. And look, I was very happy about that. But it's like, what was about? How did you get into this to begin with?
Well, I'd like you to refer to me coming from right field rather than left field. I very rarely come anywhere from the left. I've always been a Hawthorn supporter. I was working closely with the club when I was Premier, doing things fairly low key, as I would have to be. After I got out, I was asked to join the board. I think it was 2005, and at the end of that year, they asked me to come on with the intention of taking over from Ian Dicker.
Was Ian Dicker aware of that?
Yeah. Ian was the president at the time, and he got myself and Martin Ralston to join the board at the same time. And the question then was who was going to take over from him. And I was given the nod or the responsibility. So from right field, absolutely.
Love it.
Well, take us back even a little bit further, Jeff. How did you fall in love with the Hawks as a young man?
We lived in Hawthorn. In Hawthorn. In fact, my father, whose name was Ken Kennett, can you imagine anyone calling their son Ken Kennett? But they did. He was a very good player with Scotch College and was asked by Dr. Jonah to come and play at Hawthorn. The war intervened, and he went to war, came back, and then went and played for Camberwell, which was an associated club at the time. So he used to take me down to Glenferrie Oval from a very early age, even though he and my mother supported Melbourne. And I used to stand on the hill and watch the play at Glenferrie when there wasn't a blade of grass and water, and he built me a little stool to stand on so I could see over the people ahead of me. We all stood on the hill next to what was the old urinal, and in wet weather it always overflowed. So there'd be dozens, mainly men, all standing there watching the football, watching players like John Peck, and this wafting of urine would be coming over the community as a whole. So I've been fortunate. I've seen every Hawthorn premiership since 1961, and I hope to see a few more before the Grim Reaper comes and picks me up.
Wonderful.
That's it's a big visual there, Jeff. So we've gone from Hawthorn to Waverley, a bit further away from that urinal flow. Now we maybe Dingley down the track. So
the urinal,
making sure.
Yeah, we got Pool we covered, right?
Years ago, I can tell you.
we got our team colours covered there. Thanks for that. So, Jeff, did you ever play football yourself?
Oh, look, I don't want to spend hours on my football career. Books have been written about it.
All right, give us a highlight. What was the highlight, Jeff? Keep it
the highlight would have been when I was elevated from the 8s. There were only a few schools that could have 8th team: Melbourne Grammar, Xavier, Scots, a couple of others. And I was elevated from the 8s, where I was an outstanding player, to the 4ths one day. I ran onto the field. didn't see where I was running, ran into a fellow, knocked myself out, was carted off the ground, never played in the fourth again, and went back to the eighths.
And that was at Scotch, wasn't it?
Well, that was the highlight of my football career.
Yeah. Oh, very good. We were fortunate to hear you at the Hawks in Business lunch, which Stephen Gillam helps with. Any fans watching, we can get in touch. We can point you to Gilly if you want to attend those types of events. But Jeff, you were talking with Gil about the AFLW license. Perhaps could you bring the fans into where we perhaps didn't quite achieve a license first up, and how we're looking right now, because there's a lot of comments from the fans now about the AFLW license for the Hawks.
Yes, I think the history is known. The board at the time didn't want to be fielding an AFLW team. That was a mistake, clearly. When I resumed my leadership of the club, I immediately changed that position, but the competition was then up and running. So we were left at the stalls a little bit. So we've been arguing for admission together with Essendon for some time now. The AFL Commission is meeting on the 1st of May, and we'll get an idea then as to when we enter. Now, I'd like it to be next year. They keep talking about 23. The one thing we'd want to ensure, because we do have an a VFLW team, but most of the players are contracted this and next year. So even if we get in next year, we're not going to have access to the drafting and the exchange of players, which puts us at a severe disadvantage. And so we'll just have to wait and see. Having said that, we'd all prefer to go in next year, because it is without a doubt the fastest growing aspect of AFL football at the moment.
Yeah, phenomenal. Fingers crossed, everything crossed for next year. And if we start behind the 8 ball, that's okay. Hawks, get up.
Yeah, Jeff, don't take no for an answer. We need to have that club in that team in there next year.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
You're only the most powerful president in the whole of the AFL, but that's okay.
I'm a simple soldier, and the AFL is a colossus who answers to no one, let alone the clubs.
Well,
fair enough.
Eddie had some interesting views on the number of teams in the league, and Sean here is quoting you. I haven't quite caught this quote, Jeff, so maybe this makes sense to you, about the bottom 5 teams being relegated. Is that still on your radar as something you'd stand by? And if the Hawks are in the bottom 5, ouch.
What do you mean my radar? I didn't bloody suggest that. That was Eddie. Okay. Look, I think constructive discussion within the AFL as to how the AFL is structured and run is always healthy. And there is talk about a 19th and a 20th team. To be quite honest, at the moment there are 18 teams. 12 of those are financially assisted by the AFL to keep them going. 6 of us are non-assisted clubs. Therefore, before you even think about admitting a new team, a 19th or a 20th team, I would think you'd rather get more of those 12 teams into a more healthy position. So I don't see a 19th or 20th team happening at the moment. And I think Eddie was really saying if you go to 19-20, you can have 2 divisions, and then you can have some system of relegation. Now, I tell you, we will all miss Eddie around the boardroom table at the AFL. His knowledge of the game, of the code, is quite profound, and his thinking is often outside the square. And you can't afford not to have those sort of people within your ranks. So I hope at some stage in the not too distant future, the presidents and or the AFL will find a way that Eddie's contribution and his ideas can still be heard at the highest level. Not necessarily followed, but can be heard and considered. Now, how that happens, I don't know. But he is perhaps one of the 2 or 3 best thinkers within the code.
Well, he's still in the media, right? So it's not like he's not going to be heard. So
I know, but that's a different thing from working within the organisation. and I'd like to see him have a role within the organisation.
Do you think he was unfairly done by?
You know, we've become so politically correct these days that, you know, they're bar the grace of God go any of us. And when you're in the media, and when you're football club president, and when you're running TV shows, you're always saying something every day where someone's going to be offended by what you do. And, you know, if you have a look at what Eddie was saying, he was actually using some words from the report itself. And that led to the sort of reaction from within his club and outside. You know, it goes back to what I was saying before. How long do you spend in an organisation in a leadership position? The longer you stay there, the greater the number of people are going to be that try and want you gone. I said to Ed, probably year 12 or 13, it was time for him to get out. And I'll never forget, he said, there's only one or two more things for me I want to finish. Well, that took him another 8 years. Was he unfairly dealt with? I think it was sad, and I think it was unnecessary, and I think it could have been handled a lot better.
Yeah. No, I understand. I'd agree with you there. Look, I'm not a fan of Eddie, but I do feel that he was a victim to the woke brigade, and I wasn't pleased with how it all transpired. So there seemed to be a big media pile-on, and I'm disappointed that Eddie gave into it personally. But
yes, well, I'm not sure he had much he could do. I know he was very hurt by some of the things that were said at the time. It is what it is, but he's got a thick skin. He's only drawing breath. He'll come back like a vampire at some stage and breathe fire and brimstone over us all. Don't worry about that.
All right, enough of Collingwood. Come on, back to the Hawks now. So,
but aren't they playing well? Aren't they playing well, Collingwood?
Can't wait to play them.
They don't have the same. They don't have the reasons that I'm putting forward for our equally non-winning performance. We're consolidating. For Collingwood, they should be delivering this year.
We don't mind giving a little bit of a ribbing when Grundy's contract was so big, and we get a Tom Phillips as happy days.
Oh, it's not for me to delve into Collingwood's administrative.
Leave it to the fans, Jeff. All good. One fan here, Nicholas Young, Jeff, would like to know which first-year player you most excited about. And following that, can you please tell us a little bit about Denver Grainger-Barras? Because Talking Hawks are getting a group of fans together to get some funds to sponsor him. So maybe you can give us an update.
Well, he is a great little player, and he's very, very exciting. I said earlier, I didn't want to name any players because I don't want to give them the kiss of death or the others to feel outside the loop. So therefore, let me say, I think it's quite possible of those that we picked up and some very low in the drafting, they will all be major contributors at Hawthorn over the next 5 to 10 years. And that's on the back of getting Will Day last year, who in the very short time he was playing with us last year proved to be quite dynamic. He will learn the game, etc. Can I just say, in terms of your raising funds and sponsorship to support one of the players, who'd you say you were going to sponsor?
Denver.
I'd like to make an offer. Oh. Can I make an offer?
Please.
This football I found in my cupboard. It is a football that is signed by our first premiership coach, John Kennett, by our first premiership captain, Grainger-Barras, as it is signed by David Parkin. So David Parkin, 1971. Of course, it's signed by myself, but I can rub that out if people would rather have a clean ball. And I think the other one is John Marnie's signature is on it. So I would like to give it to you guys. You can auction it or do what you like with it. But this now, with the passing in the last 12 months of both Grainger-Barras and John Kennett, this ball and what's on it can never be repeated. So it's a very valuable piece of memorabilia. So I offer it to you to help you in your fundraising campaign to support a young player.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Jeff. That's brilliant. So, well, thank you.
I've also got here some hand sanitizing cream if you'd like it, because I think we'll have less use of it in the years to come. So maybe I can clear out my den by offering you product.
You didn't stock up, Jeff. Come on, surely.
Well, if you start a church, Jeff, you can use it to anoint people with.
Yes, that could go anywhere. That comment, yes.
Yes.
Anyway.
All right. Yeah, moving along. All right. So, Jeff, sorry, Ian, a couple of things that are coming off the feed here. Some fans have been concerned about the seating situation and the memberships. Do you have anything you can offer the fans regarding that situation?
Well, firstly, can I just thank all of our members who are watching this evening. We've just tipped over 70,000, of whom about 7,000 in Tassie. So that is a fantastic response given what we've been through with COVID and the economic circumstances. It also, I think, is fantastic because it shows that the members understand the period of consolidation we're going through, right? So it wasn't a good year for us last year on the field. It started off slowly this year in terms of win-losses, but there's a lot of goodness happening at the club. So the members understand that. Secondly, the ticketing has been a bit of a mess, again, because of COVID and the restrictions on ground. So this idea of having to go to Ticketek and order a ticket and then not going to your reserved seating is a real pain in the butt for many, because not only do they go to the football to enjoy the game, they go to see and sit next to and talk to people they've been going to the football with for years. And the only place they ever see them is at the football, and yet they build up this bond. So I hope when we get back to the stage that the restrictions are lifted, then people will be able to get access to their ticketing and their seats as per normal. Now, when that's going to happen, I'm not quite sure. It looks as though there's a chance we'll be lifting the numbers for this round this weekend. I think I saw somewhere that it might have gone up to 80,000, but you really want to have no conditions and everyone just be able to utilise their membership and their ticketing as has always been the case.
So, Jeff, I don't understand. What's the difference? I mean, obviously there's 20,000 or 25,000 people difference, but what's the bloody difference between having 75,000 people and 100,000 people? It's you're going to be pressing up against that many people regardless.
Ask the government. I can't answer that. And the thing is, the vast majority of those 70,000 are sitting shoulder to shoulder anyway.
It doesn't make any sense.
There's one person, then a gap. I went to the football the other day, and there's a whole section up in the gods that have been closed off. And that counts towards the reduction of 25,000.
Which that just forces them all down to mix with other people.
And the other thing is it's open air. And if people want to wear masks, they can wear masks. But, you've got to live with this virus, this COVID-19. We've got to live with it. We've got to manage it. So it doesn't make sense to me at all, let alone, and I won't go down this path for long, limiting the number of people who can go to the dawn service on Sunday to only 1,400 people.
That's idiotic. You can't control that.
Stopping the diggers marching, for goodness sake. The diggers will be marching much further apart than people sitting watching the football, and they say they're restricting their night. It's madness.
It's like a token gesture.
Sorry?
It's like a token gesture, isn't it, to appease the politically correct, or the people who are really scared about COVID.
The contradictions are enormous, absolutely enormous.
So, Jeff, anyway. I'm interested in talking in numbers of members, and hopefully this all passes fairly soon with spacing and those allowed in the ground. But take us back to 5-250 plan, 2 premierships, 50,000 members in 07. How far away, realistically, do you think the club is from their next, well, you said their next flag, but 100,000 members? And the relevance to having 100,000 members is great financially to the club. And I know there's a lot of fans that join us that are happy to put their hand in their pocket and support the club. There's a few that have a gripe because they think they are getting a poor quality scarf or something like that. I say to you, just join the next group. But 100,000 members, how do we entertain that as a club and watching games? Do we change the way we interact with fans?
There's no doubt COVID, for most clubs, stopped the progression. So we got up over 80,000. COVID hit, and then a number of people, for obvious reasons, couldn't continue with their membership. And where they haven't been able to continue for economic reasons, we have continued their membership for 1 or 2 years, right? So family club, if you've fallen on hardship terms, then mention that to the club and we will respect that confidentially and continue your membership going until you can either afford to come back or a review of circumstances. So, but you've got to set goals in life, Matt. You've got to have goals. And I would love to get to 100,000 real members. So some of the clubs, and I won't mention who, they now have private enterprise practices like gymnasiums. And what people who become members of their gyms that they run are now added to their membership lists, which inflates their real membership list quite dramatically. Our members are all Hawthorn members. They're all football club members, not members of other organisations associated with the club. How realistic is it? Look, again, if we keep moving the way I hope we're moving at the moment, I'd like to think maybe 23, 24, we'll get back to 100,000. So the plan we put in place a couple of years ago, which was the Dare to be Different vision and strategy, we're going to have to alter that slightly just because of what's happened over the last year.
So, Jeff, how are we going with Dingley? Can you give us an update on that?
Yes, it's, again, been slowed down a bit because of COVID, fundraising, etc. But we've done all the measurements of the ground movement, so that's putting pads in place all over the site. We've just signed a contract to get soil in now to top the site up, which we've got to do, and that'll take 2 or 3 months, depending on what soil we can get. And then we're going to look at how we develop the program, and we hope to do it probably in 3 stages, whereas once we thought we might be able to do it in one hit, but it's a big project. So it is progressing. It's been slowed down because of COVID, and I guess even now this year, because of the uncertainty about the economy generally, that's carried through from last year, but we're still on track to deliver over time.
Oh, wow, that's great. So what are we waiting on, or what are we relying on at the moment, funding-wise? Are we reliant upon state government, federal government?
Well, we've got assets, as you know. So we've got cash in hand to a certain degree. I can't remember what it is. It's probably about 23 million. We've got assets that we could sell, which might get us another 14, 15. We've got some money from the federal government, which is, I think, about 15. We've got hopefully about to get money from council, but we're building up the war chest, but we want to do it properly, and this will be the home of the Hawks for the next 50 years at least. And bear in mind, we're the only club that owns the land. We're going to be the only club that owns our own asset. Everyone else is on government land. Wow. So the asset that we have in the land now, which we own, which I think we bought for 7 or 8, is probably worth closer to 15 now.
Wow.
So we're the only club that is going to be in control totally of our infrastructure. And again, I think that's good.
I think Stephen here's suggesting, Jeff, you might have some friends in local government. Maybe we can get some soil.
Young Stephen suggested here we get the soil from the tunnel. Thank you, Stephen. Much appreciated. It's all been diverted to your backyard, mate.
I'm interested, Jeff, on Tassie then. With a view to Dingley, I think you're playing your cards well here, and some don't like your perhaps political approach, but you're very calculated, I think, in a lot of what you put out there. If Hawthorn were to consider 10 games at Tasmania, should if we hypothesize for a moment, I think our record would as far as win-loss, I think that would be in our favour. And if that can work for the Tasmanian government, albeit I'm going to upset some Victorian Hawks fans here saying this.
I'm upset.
If you want success, that would put us up into the top 8, I think, by in the next few years, if we were to come to some sort of agreement for more games in Tassie. But what are your thoughts, Jeff, on that right now?
What I think, Matt, is you're a very brave man, and no one knows where you live because there'll be a lot of people coming after you. Look, we have a very good arrangement with Tassie. It's 4 games at present plus a pre-season game when COVID doesn't prevail. Those negotiations have stopped at the moment for 2 reasons. One, there is another inquiry into the potential viability of a Tasmanian team being conducted by Colin Carter, who was an AFL commissioner, then became president of the Geelong Football Club and is a consultant. So he's very well skilled to conduct this inquiry, and that is due to report in July this year. And secondly, right now there's a Tasmanian election on. That will be decided on the 1st of May. So all negotiations by law have to stop. The governments don't have the authority to enter into any agreements in a period prior to an election. There has been no suggestion that we play 10 games in Tassie. I was asked some time ago on a radio station in Adelaide, would I consider Hawthorn moving to Tasmania? And I said, as a matter of negotiation, well, I don't rule anything in or out, because I think when you're going into negotiations, you've got to go in with a white piece of paper and then you start. But I can say to your viewers, listeners today, that we will never play 10 home games in Tassie. Right? It's just not on. And it's not just about winning premierships. I mean, even though we're at Waverley and we're moving to Dingley, our heart and soul is still at Little Glenferrie ground. And that is very important. And we're working with the City Council at Boroondara to see if we can't do more with that ground for the club. So that's a continuing piece of work. Also, while we have 70,000 members, of whom 1/10 are Tassie members, the rest of our members are on the mainland, most in Victoria, but we have a very large membership in South Australia and Perth and Sydney. So, no, we won't play 10 games there. We'll look forward to the negotiations reopening after this election, whoever wins the election, and we'll see what the outcome is. But that'll depend on the Colin Carter inquiry. It will depend on the AFL's opinion. It will depend on the views of the presidents, because the presidents have the ultimate say in whether there'll be a 19th team or whether they might keep 18 teams and one of us goes down to Tassie full time, but it won't be Hawthorn.
North Melbourne.
Yeah.
Well, might be a good idea. We might put Collingwood down there for a while, see how they go.
All right, fans. There you go. Jeff's clarified. Hopefully you got me off the hook a little bit there, Jeff. But,
yeah, Matt, don't ever say that again. That'd be great. Yeah, that's never going to happen. Love Tassie. 4 games is great. So I enjoy going.
First game in a long time coming up on Sunday. We've got the Anzac Day game against Adelaide. So it'll be nice to be back there. And we do love Tassie. We've been there 20 years. Wow. I go to Tasmania as regularly as I can for football and for other reasons. And I love driving around the island state. And wherever I go, people talk to me about Hawthorn. So our membership is not just in Launceston. It's right throughout the state. And the players and the coaches do wonderful jobs with our community camps down there. They do a wonderful job when there's emergencies. Alistair Clarkson will take in the players and we'll do fencing, or we'll do, clearing, or so it's more than football to us. It is part of our heart and soul, Tassie.
Yeah. So, Jeff, do you think there's too many teams in Melbourne?
Oh, well, only to the point that the more teams you have, drawing on basically the same audiences for membership and sponsorship, the more challenging it is. The AFL has always said recently they're going to continue with 18 teams All right, that's fine. At the moment, there are 10 in Melbourne. Whether that will ever change or not in my lifetime, I've got no idea. But right now, as we speak this evening, there is no plan for any Melbourne team to play anywhere else or to be merged to allow another team in.
Yep, fair enough. Well, that's disappointing because there's a few irrelevant clubs out there at the moment, in my opinion. But yep, I understand. I think there's too many, and I think that there's a couple that should.
I'm very conscious of time, Jeff, but something our fans have been talking about is the youth and how long we play them. At what point does the club have a good look with the football department at how many games you can put in and balance that with into youth and sort of, if we're not going to make finals, when do we start to inject more games into the youth? Because we've got a young Emerson Jecker and kicking 14 goals in the last 3 games with Box Hill and Reeves pushing. Segler's injured. Is it time? When do we call it, Jeff?
Well, I think we've started to do it. You have a look at the young ones we've played already this year. And I think, now, don't hold me to it, because I'm not part of the football department's deliberations. They will meet again on Thursday or Friday. I wouldn't be surprised if another player is included in our game for Tasmania.
There you go, right? Hawks fans. Right.
And the big thing about that is I've got no idea whether I'll be right or wrong. But there's been a few of us talking after last weekend whether the football department have heard our discussions, whether they agree with them or not. But you're quite right. This year, increasingly next year, if we're going to be competing for silverware properly in 2023, these younger players have got to get games under their belt, right? Now, you mix that with our more experienced players, but the reality is you've got to give them playing time. It's the only way they're going to learn the game. They're going to learn to play with each other, to know each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Great.
I'm disappointed we haven't played more of them this season. So I thought there was ample opportunity, particularly last week. I thought there was a great opportunity to bring in, say, Jecker as a tall forward. But, I was disappointed that we didn't bring him in anyway.
Well, that's the beauty about being a football fan without any responsibility. But we employ people in the club like Rob McCarthy and Richie Vandenberg and Alistair Clarkson to make those decisions because we accept that they have more experience than we have. Yeah. So employ good people around you and allow them to do it. You and I can be commentators on their selections, etc., etc. But no, we employ them, we pay them, we employ them because we think they're the best in the game. Therefore, we've got to let them make the decisions as they see fit.
Yeah, it's a lot easier on this side, that's for sure, Jeff, being able to commentate on it. So I respect the job that they do, and I think they've done a great job so far.
Well, no, that's not what you said at all. You wanted them playing younger players last week. So
I'm just saying I'm disappointed we haven't seen him.
You can't have your cake and eat it, for goodness sake.
Watch me.
There you go. Jeff, you can come back and give Brad curry more often. That's good. Well, look, Jeff, we will wrap up shortly, but fans, thanks for joining us. If you haven't got behind Talking Hawks, then we'd love it if you could subscribe to us on YouTube, on Facebook, share it, just let some other Hawks fans know, because we are very conscious of having an online connection, given there's a bit of limited capacity with getting to games, and hopefully can have more fun, intelligent conversation and talk about, the armchair side of it when we need to back here behind the screen. And it's been amazing, Jeff, to have you on board tonight. Thank you for being so generous.
Thank you for the gift.
That's amazing, guys. And go Hawks. And we'll have to arrange how I'm going to get this to you. But
I'll pick it up.
Well, the other thing is I could just go out onto my front lawn and kick it to you, because I'm a prodigious torpedo punt kicker. And it would probably, where'd you say you lived? At Frankston. Could make there easily.
Wonderful, Jeff. All right, well, thank you. It's been great. We'll certainly arrange that and put the details to the fans so that you can, that's an amazing piece of history right there. Hawks fans.
Yeah.
So there's been a few that commented, Jeff, that we're at 61 with you. So that have joined us tonight. So
thank you.
Thanks
Fantastic.
again, everyone.
Thanks a lot. And thank you, Jeffrey, and go Hawks.
Go Hawks.